today marks 5 years since I moved into this apartment. And I am the kind of person where I'm a homebody. I've always been very introverted, and I value having my own space and being able to just spend time with myself. And I have always found myself the most comfortable when I am at home. And I have lived here for 5 years now. I moved here in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is my first ever apartment, the first time living on my own, the first time moving, out of my parents' house. I lived with roommates when I was in college, but that felt a little bit different. And when I moved back home from college in 2019, me and my parents had somewhat of a mutual agreement that, I live at home for at least a year, save up some money, and then once that year comes up, I can, decide if I want to keep living at home or move out and get a place of my own. So after 1 year, so in June of 2020, as some of you may remember, we were in a pandemic. And at that time, I didn't feel the need to move out because, we're in a pandemic. There's really no point. I might as well just stay at home for a little bit longer. A couple months go by. In August of 2020, I had left my first company and started a new job at my second company. At that point, I wanted to move out, but for some reason I just wasn't. And I had a realization that I can just move out whenever. So I told my parents, hey, I'm going to look for a new place. I'm planning to move out. And they were not too happy about it. I think it was for multiple reasons. I think one is because we're in a pandemic and they were afraid that if I were to move out, I might get sick. They also didn't want me to spend money. My parents' mindset was, if I'm going to spend money, I should just buy a house. But it's not that freaking easy to just do that. And then the third one, and this is, I feel like a part of it is me being the youngest in the family. I don't think my parents thought that I could live on my own, which I thought was very strange. They felt like I wasn't responsible enough or I couldn't take care of myself, which I thought was very odd. At the time, I was touring these apartments and I would have my parents come along with me. And after every tour, my mom would make some sort of comment like, oh, this place is so too ghetto, or oh, this is like so expensive, but all the appliances are run down. Oh, it's such a bad location. Oh, this is so dirty. Oh, she would always make some sort of comment about the place. And then she'll ask me like, why are we doing this? Why do you want to move out? It was hard for her to understand that I obviously love my parents, but I'm old enough. I make enough money. I know I can live on my own. And I really value having my own space. I wanted to be more independent, and it just felt like it was time for me to move out. Eventually, once I determined the location I wanted to live at, that's when I kind of narrowed it down to like 2 or 3 apartments that I was interested in moving to. And for about 2 to 3 months, every day, multiple times a day, I was checking the prices of the apartments to see if the prices will go down. Fast forward to November of 2020, I'm checking the prices and I see one apartment and the rent price is the lowest I had ever seen in the past 3 months. So I just apply, and the next day they told me I got the apartment. I brought my mom to, just tour the apartment, and she was very happy with it. She was like, oh, this is by far the best place we have ever seen. The amenities were nice. It's in a great location. I was very happy to get this place. A month later, I moved into my apartment and it felt great. It felt like I was truly able to begin adulthood. Because the thing is for me, when I am living at home with my parents, I just assume my parents will cook everything and I just feel a bit more lazy. So, I've been living here for 5 years now. I did a tour, an apartment tour video that I posted a couple weeks ago here on my channel. And the reason why I did that is because I don't plan on adding anything new to my apartment. And it's really sad to say, but I realized the other day that, we're in the month of December. This year will probably be my last full year in this apartment. In 2026, I do plan to move out. I do not plan to re-sign a lease here. And that is mainly due to the rent. I got in at a very low price, and normally every year when I re-signed the lease, the rent went up about 5%. 2 years ago, they raised the price up by a lot, and I was shocked. I emailed the property managers and I was like, this went up a lot higher than I expected. Is this rent price, is it negotiable? Like, is there anything we can do about this? And they responded back saying no, because the new price that I will pay, that's the average price in my apartment. So logically, I was okay with that because I am paying the average price now. But it was still expensive, and last year the price went up again. It went up a little bit more than 5% just because I had signed a shorter term lease. In the past, I have always done 12 to 13 month leases. Last year, I did a 11-month lease, and because of that, the rent price was even more expensive. So I cannot justify spending that much, because the thing is, I'm in a great location. I have a pool, I have a gym. I use the gym every once in a while, but like the pool, for example, there's a pool in my apartment. I have not once been there. For 5 years that I've been here, I've never once been to the pool. So there's certain things that I just don't really take advantage of. So, if I were to go to a new place, I don't need all this fancy stuff. I don't need a pool. I don't need a gym in the apartment because I already pay for a climbing gym membership. These are all things that I like to think about when I think about the next place I want to move to. But the reason why today just feels so special is because I've always been a homebody. I've always valued having a place of my own. I just feel the most comfortable when I'm at home. And I have friends who they live in apartments and they live there for 1 to 2 years and they move out. They're just constantly bouncing around apartments. But I've been here for 5 years. I've loved this place, and I never wanted to move. My plan was to stay here until I can buy a house. But right now there's just uncertainty with my unemployment. I don't know when exactly I'm going to get a decent paying job, and the rent just keeps going up. It's hard for me to justify staying at this place when it's just getting more and more expensive. But I've been here for 5 years, half a decade. I spent half of my 20s here in this apartment, and I have experienced so much during these last 5 years. And it's because I made the right decision to move out of my parents' house and to live on my own. Career-wise, I have worked at 2 different companies now. My salary was going up. I always wanted to hit a 6-figure salary by the time I turned 25, and I was able to achieve that here in this apartment. I received my first ever promotion in this apartment. On the flip side, I also experienced the most stressful times of my life working, and I was at rock bottom because I was so burnt out with work. So there was good and bad to it with my career. I also experienced getting laid off. Right behind me, that desk, that's where I would work at. That desk is where I took my call saying that I'm going to get laid off. So, I experienced unemployment here. Personally, I've done a lot. I experienced a lot of situationships that I hated. I'm going to do a separate video on that. I experienced love for the first time, not from family and friends, but love from a partner. I experienced heartbreak for the first time. I was able to discover so many passions and learn about who I was as a person. Because I moved out and got a place of my own, I was able to discover that I have a passion for reading and collecting manga. I've tried so many different things. I, at one point, was taking a Korean class. I, started to cook more, and there was a point in my life where I became a vegan. That was in 2021. It didn't last. I mean, it lasted for about a year. I took boxing classes. I took singing lessons. I began rock climbing, and I made so many great friends from that. And I truly think it's because I moved out and got a place of my own. If I was living at home, I wouldn't have done any of those things. I would not have experienced the relationships that I was in. I wouldn't have experienced all of these hobbies that I love to do now. I would just be too comfortable at home, just hiding in my room or something. Mentally, some years have been tougher than the others, but I used to suffer in silence. I used to keep all of my problems to myself. And I had this issue when I was in college. But in 2023, I hit a bit of a low point, and I decided for the first time I would seek therapy and talk to a therapist. And I'm really glad I did that. So I, tried therapy for the first time, and I was really happy that I did. That one only lasted for a couple months, and then I stopped. And then this year, I decided to start seeing a therapist again, because at the time I was heartbroken and it was hard for me to just get through life. This is back in April, and I'm still seeing that same therapist today, and that has been great. I'm doing stuff mentally to take care of myself. Physically, well, I guess physically there's good and bad. I have a lot of back issues. I used to play a lot of tennis, and I can't play anymore. I haven't played in over 4 or 5 years because of my back. It's hard for me to exercise now just because I just feel something. It's either in my back, my legs, my shoulders. Something is wrong every time. So I've been trying to be a bit more careful, and I've been trying to eat healthier. My diet has changed a lot, and I eat a lot healthier, which I'm very proud of. I've also traveled a lot during my time here in this apartment. I've done trips up to Philadelphia. I've done trips to Seattle. I've visited Portugal, Greece. I went to Maine, which is like my favorite state I've ever been to. I've done so much traveling, and the last thing that I want to point out is that during my time here in this apartment, I began to document my life. I made the decision to buy a camera and to film my life more, just so that when I get older, I can look back and watch these videos. Again, I would not have done this if I was still living at home with my parents. I just wanted to make this video because, it's been 5 years since I've been living here. I've been able to call this place my home, and I love it so much. And it makes me sad that I am going to eventually move out, most likely next year. And I just know that when I do move out, I'm probably going to be pretty emotional, but I just wanted to take this time to reflect on the last 5 years. While it has been tough at times, overall, it has been some of the greatest years of my life, and I have just grown so much.